The vast chamber of the Galactic Council fell silent as Ambassador Daniel Carter of Earth approached the speaking platform. He was a tall man, with graying hair at his temples and deep blue eyes that surveyed the room calmly. 200 alien species watched him, their attention mild. Humans were still newcomers, only accepted into the Council 5 years ago. Most delegates were already checking their data tablets, expecting another boring report about Earth's progress. Carter cleared his throat. His voice, amplified by the chamber's acoustics, rang clear and firm. On behalf of the United Earth Government, I formally declare war against the Zornian Empire for crimes against sentient beings. The silence lasted 3 more seconds before the chamber erupted. Delegates jumped to their feet, translator devices struggling to keep up with the sudden burst of shouting in 100 different languages. Some representatives physically changed color in shock. At the far end of the chamber, the Zornian delegation, tall, scaled beings with ridge-lined faces, rose from their seats. Their usual air of superiority was replaced by something rarely seen on Zornian faces: alarm. Carter stood motionless at the platform, his expression unchanged. Behind him, Admiral Lisa Franks, his military attaché, watched the chaos with a carefully neutral expression. Her hand rested lightly on her sidearm, though she made no threatening moves. Order. We will have order. The council chairman, a bulbous purple-skinned Mektari, pounded his ceremonial staff. The noise gradually subsided as delegates returned to their seats, many still gesturing wildly or speaking into communication devices. Ambassador Carter, the chairman said, his voice trembling slightly. Perhaps there has been a translation error. You appear to have declared war. Carter finished firmly. There is no error. Earth has conclusive evidence of Zornian violations of Council law across 17 developing worlds. The harvesting of sentient beings, genocide, biological experimentation. Our declaration stands. New murmurs swept the chamber. The Zornian Empire had ruled large sections of the galaxy for over 3 centuries. No species had challenged them directly in living memory. Their military might was unquestioned, their influence vast. And here stood a human, from a civilization barely able to reach nearby stars, declaring war. The head of the Zornian delegation, Ambassador Krath, stepped forward. His scales flushed a deep crimson as he spoke. This primitive species insults us with lies. Krath hissed. Earth has been in space for mere decades. They know nothing. They are nothing. We demand this human be removed and his false claims dismissed. Carter smiled slightly. We anticipated your response, Ambassador Krath. That's why we've prepared evidence packets for every member of the Council. At his slight nod, Admiral Franks tapped a command into her wrist device. Every delegate's data tablet chimed simultaneously. These are just summaries, Carter continued as delegates began scanning the information with widening eyes. The full evidence has been transmitted to the Council's secure archives. We suggest forming an immediate investigation committee. Krath's scales now pulsed between crimson and black. This is manipulation. Humans think they can challenge us. Earth will be dust before your next sunrise. The chamber grew quiet at the naked threat. The chairman looked nervously between Carter and Krath. We expected threats too, Carter replied calmly. But perhaps before making them, you should check on your harvest operation on Bilari IV. Our forces liberated it 3 hours ago. A Zornian aide rushed to Krath, whispering urgently. The ambassador's face froze in shock. This meeting is adjourned for emergency consultation, the chairman announced, his voice shaking. The inner circle will convene immediately. Ambassador Carter, you will attend. As delegates filed out in stunned conversations, Admiral Franks moved closer to Carter. It's done, she whispered. No turning back now. Carter nodded slightly. For all those worlds that couldn't speak for themselves, it's long overdue. Together, they walked toward the inner circle chambers, ignoring the stares of fear, confusion, and from a few delegates, faint hope. The inner circle chamber was smaller than the main hall, but no less grand. 7 senior council members sat at a curved table of polished blue stone. They stared at Ambassador Carter with expressions ranging from fear to anger to curiosity. "Explain yourself, Ambassador," said the Mecteri chairman. "In all my cycles as chairman, no species has ever declared war during a formal council session." Carter stood calmly before them. "Sometimes new problems require new approaches." Vice Admiral Peter Holloway entered the chamber and handed Carter a small datapad. Carter read it quickly and nodded. "Earth Command confirms our declaration is fully authorized," Carter said. "This is not a rash action or mistake." The Trisian representative, an insect-like being with compound eyes, leaned forward. "Humans are a level 3 civilization. The Zornians are level 7. You have 12 colony worlds. They control over 300. This is not logical." "Logic isn't always about numbers," Carter replied. "Sometimes it's about having proof when no one else does." Outside the chamber, Earth's embassy had transformed into a fortress. Security Chief Nicole Bennett directed her team to activate shield barriers around the building. Diplomatic staff checked weapons that had been hidden in secret compartments. "All stations secure," Bennett reported through her communicator. "Embassy lockdown complete." In the communications center, Officer Samantha Brooks monitored incoming transmissions. Her screen filled with urgent messages from dozens of species. "Everyone thinks we've lost our minds," she told Intelligence Director Alan Howard. "The Frentary ambassador asks if Earth's water supply was contaminated with madness spores." Howard smiled slightly. "Let them think that for now." Meanwhile, in another private chamber, the Zornian ambassador Krath faced Carter across a small table. 2 guards from each side stood at attention along the walls. "Withdraw your declaration," Krath demanded. His scaled skin pulsed with dark colors. "The Zornian fleet can reach Earth in 7 days. We will turn your homeworld to ash." Carter didn't flinch. "Your threats are expected, Ambassador, but things have changed. Look at this." He placed a small projector on the table. It displayed images of a facility filled with holding cells. Inside were thousands of beings, small, frightened creatures with large eyes. "The Bilari," Carter said. "A pre-spaceflight civilization. Your empire has harvested over 40,000 of them in the past year alone." "For what?" "Food. Experiments. Slave labor." Krath's eyes narrowed. "Where did you get these images?" "From the facility our forces liberated this morning," Carter replied, "along with 7 other Zornian harvest centers across the outer systems." For the first time, uncertainty crossed Krath's face. "Impossible. Those facilities are hidden. Protected. Not anymore." Carter leaned forward. "For years, your empire has preyed on developing worlds, thinking no one would dare challenge you. Earth may be new to the galactic stage, but we know injustice when we see it." Back at the Earth Embassy, Dr. Gregory Walsh, the mission's xenobiologist, studied biological samples taken from rescued Bilari children. "The genetic manipulation is extensive," he told Admiral Franks. "They'd been altering these people for specific traits. It's horrific." Franks nodded grimly. "Add it to the evidence file. The Council needs to see everything." On the embassy roof, Vice Admiral Holloway received an encrypted transmission from Earth's hidden fleet. "U.S. Defiance in position," reported the captain's voice. 3 other vessels on standby near jump points. "Ready on your command." "Maintain stealth protocols," Holloway ordered. "No action unless directly threatened." As night fell on the Council world, representatives from 17 other species arrived quietly at the Earth Embassy's back entrance. All were from worlds that had suffered Zornian predation. All had been too afraid to speak out alone. Carter greeted them in a secure conference room. "For too long, the Zornians have operated in shadows," he told the gathered aliens. "They chose their victims carefully, species too young or too weak to fight back. But together, with Earth's help, we can finally expose them to the galaxy." A reptilian delegate spoke hesitantly. "If we fail, our worlds will suffer." Carter nodded. If we fail, yes. But if we succeed, we free not just ourselves, but hundreds of developing civilizations from living in terror of the night sky. The war of evidence had begun. Dawn broke over the council city with tense quiet. The Earth Embassy's top floor became a war room where Ambassador Carter met with his core team. Large screens showed maps of Zornian territory and fleet movements. The Zornians have recalled ships from 3 sectors, said Intelligence Director Alan Howard, pointing to blinking dots on the display. They're consolidating their forces. Dr. Gregory Walsh adjusted his glasses and pulled up biological data. I've analyzed samples from all 8 rescue sites. The Zornians are using these species for different purposes, some for organ harvesting, others for genetic experiments. Carter nodded grimly. Chief Bennett, Embassy Security Status. Nickel Bennett stood straight, her uniform crisp despite not sleeping all night. Shields at maximum. We've detected 3 attempted cyber intrusions and 1 possible assassination team approaching 2 hours ago. Local authorities intercepted them after we provided evidence of their intentions. And our coalition? Carter asked. Growing, Samantha Brooks replied, looking up from her communication station. 4 more species contacted us overnight. They've suffered Zornian raids too, but were too afraid to come forward until now. Carter turned to Admiral Lisa Franks. The Defiance? Still in position, she answered. Captain Miller reports all systems ready. Our other ships are maintaining stealth positions near key jump points. Carter walked to the window overlooking the gleaming council city. For centuries, the Zornians have preyed on those too weak to fight back. They chose their victims carefully, developing worlds without space travel or council membership. He turned back to face his team. But they made one critical mistake. They raided a planet that Earth had been quietly monitoring for scientific study. When our research team witnessed their harvest ships, we began investigating. Alan Howard pulled up footage showing massive Zornian vessels descending on a primitive village. Alien creatures with spears tried helplessly to fight back against soldiers with advanced weapons. 3 years of gathering evidence, Howard said, tracking their harvest ships, finding their processing facilities, building our case, and building our alliances, added Franks. The Andarians were the first to join us. The Andarians. Dr. Walsh looked surprised. But they're a peaceful trading species who lost 3 colony worlds to mysterious disappearances over the last decade, Carter said. When we showed them our evidence, they provided us with their own. They'd been investigating too, but were afraid to move against the Zornians alone. A message alert sounded. Samantha checked her screen. The Council has formed an emergency investigation committee. They're requesting our evidence files and your presence, Ambassador. Carter nodded. This is what we've been waiting for. Once the full Council sees all our evidence, they can't ignore it. The Zornians won't go quietly, warned Bennett. Our intelligence suggests they have operatives throughout the Council system, which is why we don't go quietly either, Carter replied. He turned to Admiral Franks. Initiate Phase 2. Franks pressed her communication device. List Defiance, you are authorized to decloak and take up visible defensive position near the Council station. Notify our allied ships to do the same. On the main screen, they watched as the massive Earth warship shimmered into view near the Council's orbital station. Its hull gleamed in the sunlight, weapon ports clearly visible but not active. 3 other ships, not Earth vessels but allied species, appeared nearby in defensive formation. The communication system erupted with alarmed messages from Council security. Carter smiled slightly. Now they see that Earth didn't come to this fight unprepared. Sir, Brooks interrupted. Incoming emergency transmission from Earth. President Cooper wants to speak with you immediately. Carter's expression became serious again. Put her through in my private office. The rest of you, prepare all evidence for the committee. The next few hours will determine if our strategy works, or if we've just started a war we can't win. The investigation committee met in a secure chamber deep within the Council building. 7 delegates from neutral species sat at a round table. The Falcorian delegate, a tall being with silvery skin that seemed to shimmer in the light, led the proceedings. This committee will review all evidence regarding human claims against the Zornian Empire, the Falcorian announced. Ambassador Carter, you may present your case. Carter stood before them, calm and prepared. Behind him, Captain Jason Miller of Earth Intelligence operated a holographic projector. Honorable delegates, Carter began. 3 years ago, an Earth science team studying pre-spaceflight civilization on planet Thalari IV witnessed this. The projector displayed a scene of strange ships descending on a village of small 4-armed beings. Armed soldiers rounded up hundreds of frightened natives. The Zornians took over 3,000 Bilari that day, Carter continued. Our team followed their ships back to this facility. The image changed to show a massive space station hidden in an asteroid field. Inside were thousands of cells holding beings from dozens of different species. We've identified 18 worlds the Zornians have harvested in the past decade alone, Carter said. All pre-spaceflight civilizations with no way to defend themselves or call for help. For 2 hours, Carter presented evidence, recordings, biological samples, testimony from rescued captives, and data stolen from Zornian facilities. The Bilari were used for organ harvesting, Dr. Walsh explained, pointing to medical charts. The Kel were subject to genetic experiments. The Mori were processed as food. Several committee members looked physically ill. The Falcorians' silver skin had darkened to gray. Why would a level 7 civilization do this? Asked a committee member. The Zornians have advanced replication technology. They don't need to harvest organs or food. Because they can, Carter answered simply. Because no one has stopped them. Because they believe their superiority gives them the right. Meanwhile, at the Zornian embassy, Ambassador Krath received troubling reports. His aide entered the secure room, trembling slightly. The humans have revealed everything, the aide said. They have records of all 18 harvest worlds. They even have footage from inside the processing centers. Krath's scales darkened with rage. Impossible. Those facilities were protected by our best security. There's more, the aide continued nervously. 3 more council species have come forward with their own evidence against us, and our spies report that human warships have been detected near the Proxima colony. Krath smashed his fist against the wall. Begin the operation now. Eliminate Carter before he can present more evidence. Back at the committee hearing, a loud alarm suddenly blared. Security officers rushed into the room. Intruder alert, shouted the chief security officer. Armed Zornian agents have breached the building. They're heading this way. Chief Bennett immediately moved to Carter's side, drawing her weapon. We need to move, Ambassador. The committee members looked panicked, but the Falcorian raised a hand. No, we will continue. This attack only confirms human claims. Sounds of fighting echoed from the hallway. Bennett positioned herself between Carter and the door. Suddenly, the building shook with a distant explosion. Several security officers fell as the door burst open. 3 Zornian soldiers rushed in, weapons raised. Bennett fired first, hitting one attacker. The other 2 took cover behind columns. Get down, Bennett shouted, pushing Carter behind a presentation console. The Falcorian pressed an emergency button, and hidden shield barriers appeared around the committee members. Outside the council building, more explosions sounded. On the main communication channel, a calm voice spoke. This is Fleet Commander Olivia Ramirez of Earth's 3rd Fleet. Zornian vessels have attacked the council station. We are responding in defense of the council. Earth forces are moving to secure the ground facility. In orbit, previously hidden Earth warships decloaked and moved to intercept Zornian attackers. The massive ships dwarfed what Earth had previously claimed as their naval capacity. In the committee room, Bennett shot another attacker while shielding Carter. The Zornians just made their biggest mistake, Carter said quietly. They attacked the council itself. The Falcorian nodded. Indeed, Ambassador. And in doing so, they have answered our last questions about your claims. The news reached Earth 12 hours later. The Zornian Empire had launched a surprise attack on the human colony at Proxima Centauri. 3 massive warships appeared near the planet and began bombarding the main settlement. Lieutenant Commander Eric Daniels stood in the colony's defense center, watching as red warning lights flashed across the displays. "Evacuation status?" he asked, his voice steadied despite the chaos. 60% of civilians in shelters, reported his second-in-command. "The rest are moving now. Estimated completion in 15 minutes. Daniels nodded. "That's time we need to buy them. Activate all defense satellites. Bring the shield grid to full power." Outside, the colony's hidden defenses rose from underground bunkers. Massive gun turrets and missile launchers emerged from what had appeared to be ordinary hills and buildings. A shimmering energy field formed over the main settlement areas. The Zornian ships fired again, their energy weapons striking the shields. The entire colony shook. "Shields at 70%, reported the defense officer. "They're stronger than our intelligence suggested." Daniels opened a communication channel. "This is Lieutenant Commander Daniels to all Earth Defense Forces. Engage according to Protocol 7. I repeat, Protocol 7 is active." Across the colony, pilots rushed to hidden hangar bays. Small fighter craft launched, appearing from concealed mountain bases and underwater facilities. The Zornians had expected an easy target. Instead, they found a hornet's nest. Back on Earth, President Diane Cooper addressed the United Nations General Assembly. The massive hall was filled with representatives from every nation. Screens showed the attack on Proxima Centauri in real time. "For 3 years," President Cooper said, her voice firm, "we have gathered evidence of Zornian crimes against developing civilizations across our sector of the galaxy. We kept this information secret not out of fear, but because we needed time to prepare." She gestured to the screens showing the battle. The Zornians believed Earth was a minor power with limited space capabilities. We allowed them to believe this while building our true fleet in secret. We formed alliances with other victims of Zornian aggression. Today, that deception has saved thousands of lives on Proxima. In a secure room beneath the United Nations building, military leaders from a dozen nations monitored the situation. Fleet Admiral John Benson pointed to a tactical display. "The Andarian Defense Fleet has just arrived at Proxima," he announced. "They're engaging the Zornian warships now." On the display, new ships appeared, sleek vessels with distinctive blue energy signatures. The Andarians, Earth's strongest alien ally, had honored their secret defense pact. At the Galactic Council, news of the attack spread quickly. Ambassador Carter stood before an emergency session of the full council. "The Zornians have attacked a civilian colony," he said, his voice echoing in the chamber. "They have also attacked this very council building. Their actions prove everything we have claimed." The Thalkorian rose to speak. "Our investigation committee has reviewed Earth's evidence. We find it compelling and disturbing. The Zornian Empire has violated our most sacred laws against interfering with developing civilizations." One by one, representatives from 17 species stood. Each described raids on their colonies or home planets, hidden crimes now brought to light. In his lab on the Council world, Dr. Walsh made a breakthrough. He called Carter urgently. "Ambassador, I found something in the Zornian biological samples," he said excitedly. "A weakness in their neural structure. Their brain chemistry is vulnerable to a specific frequency of electromagnetic radiation. It wouldn't kill them, but it could temporarily disable their neural functions." Carter's eyes widened. "Could we develop a weapon based on this? Something non-lethal?" "Yes," Walsh replied. "With engineer Timothy Grant's help, we could create a device to emit that frequency. It would affect only Zornians, leaving other species unharmed." As they spoke, a new alert sounded. Carter looked at the incoming message and his face darkened. "The Zornians have just announced they're targeting Earth directly," he said grimly. "Their main battle fleet has left their home system. They'll reach Earth in 5 days. Walsh looked worried. Can our defenses hold against their full fleet? Carter's expression remained determined. They expect to find a vulnerable planet. Instead, they'll find humanity ready for the fight we've been preparing for these past 3 years. The Galactic Council chamber was packed with representatives from every member species. The vote was about to begin. After 4 days of reviewing evidence and debate, the Council was ready to make its decision about the Zornian Empire. We will now vote on Resolution 7293, announced the chairman. The resolution to formally sanction the Zornian Empire for crimes against developing civilizations and attacks on Council members. One by one, the species voted. The electronic tally board on the wall showed growing support for the sanctions. When the final vote appeared, it was overwhelming. 189 in favor, 11 against. The only votes against came from traditional Zornian vassals who feared retaliation. Ambassador Carter watched from his seat, his face showing no emotion. But inside, he felt relief wash over him. The first major goal of Earth's strategy had been achieved. The resolution passes, declared the chairman. The Zornian Empire is hereby sanctioned. All members are forbidden from providing military aid, technology, or resources to Zornian forces. Further, the Council officially recognizes the right of Earth and its allies to defend themselves against Zornian aggression. The Zornian delegates stormed out of the chamber. Their empire was now officially isolated in the galactic community. Outside the Council building, news of the vote spread quickly. On dozens of worlds previously terrorized by Zornian raids, people celebrated in the streets. For the first time in centuries, someone had stood up to the Zornians. And won. In a secure lab on the Council world, Dr. Walsh and engineer Timothy Grant worked frantically to develop their neural disruptor device. The frequency modulation is stable, Grant said, adjusting controls on a small silver cylinder. But we need more power to extend the range. Dr. Walsh nodded. If we can get this working, we can disable Zornian soldiers without killing them. It could save millions of lives on both sides. Meanwhile, on the Zornian homeworld, unrest was growing. News of the Council vote and the revelations about harvest operations had leaked to the general population. Many ordinary Zornians were horrified to learn what their government had been doing. Protests broke out in 3 major cities. The Zornian military moved to suppress them, but the damage was done. The Empire's carefully maintained image of superiority and righteousness was cracking. In Earth's orbital defense headquarters, Fleet Commander Olivia Ramirez briefed her officers on the coming battle. The Zornian main fleet will reach our system in 24 hours, she said, pointing to the tactical display. They expect to find Earth defended by our publicly known forces, 7 cruisers, and 18 support vessels. She smiled slightly. Instead, they'll face the full strength of Earth's combined fleets, plus our Andarian allies and ships from 5 other coalition members. The display changed to show hundreds of ships positioned throughout the solar system, hidden in the shadow of planets, moons, and asteroid fields. Major Catherine Russell stood up from her seat at the briefing table. Commander, my special operations team is ready. Once the battle begins, we request permission to proceed with Mission Sunrise. Ramirez nodded. Approved. Your team will drop behind enemy lines to rescue captives from the Zornian processing ship that's traveling with their fleet. Back at the Council, Carter received an urgent message from Earth. He excused himself from a meeting and found a private room to take the call. President Cooper's face appeared on the screen. Ambassador, our deep space sensors have detected something concerning. The Zornian fleet is carrying an unusual device. Our analysts believe it may be a stellar destabilizer. Carter's blood ran cold. A star killer. Those are prohibited by galactic law. Exactly, Cooper replied grimly. They're desperate. If they can't defeat us conventionally, they might try to collapse our sun. I'll inform the Council immediately, Carter said. This will remove any remaining doubt about the Zornian threat. As he ended the call, Carter thought about how far they had come. What had started as a shocking declaration of war had evolved into a galactic uprising against centuries of Zornian cruelty. Species that had suffered in silence were finding their voices. Worlds that had lived in fear were standing tall. The final confrontation was coming, and humanity was ready. Space near the Rigel system glowed with weapon fire. The largest space battle in 5 centuries had begun. Earth's combined fleet, now joined by ships from 7 allied species, faced the Zornian Armada. General Samuel Collins stood on the bridge of the command ship U.S. Valiant. Around him, officers monitored battle stations and tactical displays. Zornian forces have split into 3 attack groups, reported his tactical officer. They're trying to surround our position. Collins nodded calmly. Just as we expected. Signal the Andarian fleet to execute Maneuver Delta. Our ships will hold position. Across the battlefield, the sleek blue ships of the Andarian fleet suddenly accelerated, moving to flank the largest Zornian force. Earth ships formed a defensive wall, their shields glowing as they absorbed enemy fire. Collins opened a channel to all Earth vessels. Remember your training. The Zornians rely on overwhelming force and intimidation. We rely on coordination and strategy. Hold formation and wait for my signal. On a smaller, faster ship at the edge of the battle, Major Catherine Russell and her special operations team prepared for their mission. They wore black armored suits designed for stealth operations. Target vessel identified, Russell told her team, pointing to a massive Zornian ship hanging back from the main battle. Intelligence confirms it's carrying over 2,000 captives from harvested worlds. Our job is to get in, free them, and get out. Her team's pilot navigated through the chaos of battle, using debris and weapon interference as cover. They approached the processing ship from its blind spot. Docking in 30 seconds, the pilot announced. No sign they've detected us. Russell checked her weapons. Remember, we use non-lethal force when possible. These are scared prisoners, not soldiers. Stay calm, stay focused. At the Council World, Ambassador Carter received updates on the battle. The news was mixed. Earth forces were holding their own, but the Zornian fleet was larger than expected. We've confirmed the presence of the stellar destabilizer, reported Admiral Franks. It's on their command ship, heavily guarded. Carter turned to Dr. Walsh and Engineer Grant. Is your device ready? Walsh nodded. The neural disruptor is complete. It will affect only Zornian biology, temporarily disabling their neural functions without permanent damage. But we need to get it close to their fleet, Grant added. The range is limited to about 5,000 kilometers. Carter thought for a moment. Contact General Collins. Tell him to prepare for Operation Sundown. Back in the battle, Russell's team had successfully boarded the Zornian processing ship. They moved silently through dim corridors, disabling Zornian guards with stun weapons. Cell blocks ahead, whispered Russell's second-in-command, checking a scanner. Life signs indicate multiple species. They reached a massive chamber filled with hundreds of transparent cells. Inside were beings of all shapes and sizes, men, women, and children from worlds across the galaxy. Many looked malnourished and afraid. Begin releasing the locks, Russell ordered. Team 2, secure our escape route. Team 3, download their prisoner database. We need proof of every world they've targeted. As her team worked, Russell approached a cell holding small 4-armed beings, Bellary children. They cowered at her approach until she removed her helmet, showing her human face. We're here to take you home, she said softly. On the command ship, General Collins received Carter's message about Operation Sundown. He immediately called his ship commanders to a secure channel. All vessels, prepare to execute Formation Omega, he ordered. This is not a drill. I repeat, Formation Omega is now active. Across the battlefield, Earth ships began a coordinated movement. They appeared to be retreating, pulling back from the Zornian advance. The humans are running, announced a Zornian commander, his scaled face showing pleasure. All ships pursue and destroy. But it wasn't a retreat. The Earth fleet was drawing the Zornian ships into a carefully planned trap. Zornian command ship in optimal position, reported Collins' tactical officer. Collins nodded. Deploy the disruptor. A small unmarked vessel detached from the Valiant. It accelerated toward the heart of the Zornian fleet, carrying Walsh and Grant's neural disruptor device. The trap was set. The final phase of humanity's plan was about to unfold. 6 months after the Battle of Rigel, the Galactic Council gathered for a historic session. The chamber looked different now. The curved tables had been rearranged to form a complete circle. Every seat was at the same level. No species sat higher than others. Ambassador Daniel Carter entered to applause from many delegates. He nodded in thanks, but kept his expression modest. He took his new seat as the first human chair of the Council's Security Committee. This reformed council is now in session, announced the Thalkorian, who had been elected as the new overall chairman. Our first order of business is to review the implementation of the Free Worlds Charter. On a large display, a map showed the former Zornian territories. 27 worlds that had once been under Zornian control now glowed with a green light, indicating their new independent status. Rehabilitation teams have reached all former subject worlds, reported an Andarian delegate. Earth has provided medical aid to over 3 million former captives. 17 developing civilizations have been returned to their home planets. The neural disruptor had worked perfectly during the battle. When activated, it had temporarily disabled all Zornian neural functions. Their entire fleet had gone still, the crews unconscious but unharmed. No one had expected the humans to develop a weapon that could disable an enemy without killing them. With the Zornian fleet neutralized, their leaders had been arrested and brought to the Council for trial. The evidence against them had been overwhelming. The stellar destabilizer had been dismantled under Council supervision. The Zornian Homeworld Report, continued the Thalkorian. The new civilian government has completed its first democratic election. They have again expressed their formal apology to all victims of the former regime and have committed to reparation payments. Carter looked at his datapad, reading a private message from Admiral Franks. The last processing facility had been found and shut down yesterday. All captives were now free. It was finally over. Ambassador Carter, said the chairman, would you address the Council regarding Earth's role in these events? Carter stood and walked to the center of the chamber. Here, 6 months ago, he had shocked the galaxy by declaring war. Now he stood as the architect of a new peace. When Earth first discovered Zornian harvest operations, we faced a choice, he began. We could ignore the suffering of others, protecting only ourselves. We could attack the Zornians directly, starting a bloody war, or we could find a third path, using evidence and alliance building to expose crimes that had gone unpunished for centuries. He looked around the chamber at faces from hundreds of worlds. We chose the third path. We gathered proof. We built relationships with other victims. We developed technologies to end the conflict with minimal loss of life. And we waited for the right moment to bring everything into the light. Many delegates nodded in approval. Earth did not win this victory alone, Carter continued. Every species that provided evidence, every world that joined our coalition, every voice that spoke truth to power, all were essential. Together, we have proven that justice doesn't always require destruction. Sometimes it requires patience, planning, and courage. Outside the council building, a new memorial had been built. It recorded the names of all known victims of Zornian harvesting over the centuries. The list was tragically long. At the Earth Embassy, Dr. Walsh watched the council session on a screen. Beside him, Chief Bennett smiled as Carter finished his speech. For a diplomat who shocked everyone by declaring war, Bennett said, he's turned out to be quite the peacemaker. Walsh nodded. That was the plan all along. Sometimes you need to make noise to be heard. On Earth, citizens watched the broadcast from the council. Schools, offices, and homes had paused their routines to witness this historic moment. What had begun as a shocking declaration had transformed the galaxy's balance of power. President Cooper stood at her office window, looking at the night sky. The stars seemed different now. Earth was no longer alone, no longer a minor newcomer to galactic politics. By choosing to defend not just themselves, but all victims of injustice, humans had defined their place in the cosmos. Not as conquerors, but as protectors.